Coming in at number 10, we have the fake town. Sitting in the DMZ, which is the area between North and South Korea, this village was named the Peace Village. The village was built with the point to entice potential South Korean defectors, and they did this by showing through propaganda videos that this place is thriving economically. Americans and other witnesses believe this town is completely abandoned, however, and that it's a setup. Just like their infamous Rugyeong Hotel, which is a completely empty 105-story building, this town has their own concrete buildings with hollow insides. They also claim that electricity runs on a timer at nights to show even more false activity and to convince us more. The regime will even send maintenance employees to act as if work is being done there, when in reality, nothing is being done there.
Now coming in at our number 9 spot, the cannibals of North Korea. There were times and places in North Korea in the mid-1990s when a horrible food shortage wiped out 10% of the population. It wasn't unusual for people to sometimes randomly disappear. People were passing away by the thousands, maybe millions. But dark rumors started to spread. A woman in North Korea had whispered to a friend, "Don't buy any meat if you don't know where it comes from," and she later defected. Fear of cannibalism, like the shortage supposedly causing it, spread. People avoided the meat in street-side soup vendors and warned children not to be alone at night. At least one person in North Korea was arrested and executed for eating human flesh. Someone that had defected and fled to China had said, "People are going insane with hunger. They even kill and eat their own infants." This kind of thing is happening in many places. North Korea's shortage is over, but the stories of desperate men and women driven so insane by starvation that they consume their own children have resurfaced. Asia Press published a report alleging thousands recently passed of starvation in a North Korea province.
At our number 8 spot, we have Otto Warmbier. I mentioned him in the past videos, but I couldn't have a true horror story from North Korea without this infamous case of the 22-year-old college student Otto Warmbier. Otto Warmbier was a student from UCLA and decided it was time to go somewhere outside of the box. He then went on a trip to North Korea through a Chinese company named Young Pioneer Tours. In the hotel he was staying at, there was a forbidden floor, but he went there anyway and stole a political poster off the wall. This was all because his Methodist church in Ohio wanted him to do it. During his confession speech on February 2016, he said this:
"I have been very impressed by the Korean government's humanitarian treatment of severe criminals like myself, and of their very fair and square legal procedures in the DPR Korea."
Then in March that same year, he was convicted and sentenced to 15 years of hard labor. Negotiations happened, but it wasn't until June 2017 when North Korea released Otto, except he was in a coma after taking a sleeping pill. It wasn't until he was flown out to the US where he passed away days after. After this incident, the US government decided to ban all American tourists from visiting North Korea. Another reason not to visit this place.
Here at number 7, Sony security breach. The Sony leak has been an embarrassing invasion of privacy for many people, and the things that we found due to it are a little freaky. Because of leaked emails, we learned that everyone hates Adam Sandler. Film executives worried over the ending of the new Bond film, and no male executive can confidently watch Shame. Many people immediately suspected North Korea for the leak. Now why, you may ask? Well, because Sony was releasing The Interview, a comedy film about an attempt to assassinate Kim Jong-un. But that seemed like a bit of a stretch. Even the FBI, which was investigating the leak, considered the North Korea connection to be unlikely. But now the film has been cancelled, and the FBI has confirmed that North Korea was centrally involved in the hacks. Maybe change your passwords just in case they manage to do this again.
At our number 6 spot, we have Kidnapped, the South Korean director. A well-known figure in the South Korean film business, Shin Sang-ok, who directed hundreds of movies that were very popular. North Korean spies lured him to Hong Kong in 1976, where they abducted him. He was held rather comfortably for the following 5 years as he was brainwashed. He ultimately saw Kim Jong-il in 1983, at which point he discovered his ex-wife has also been abducted. From there, Shin directed the socialist Godzilla monster movie, Pulgasari. This movie is about a blacksmith worker who was sent to prison for wrongful reasons. From there, he created a tiny monster using rice, and before he passed away, he asked the gods to make this creation into a living creature, hence this Godzilla remake. He did manage to escape North Korea in 1986, but this will always stand as a reminder of one of North Korea's secret abductions.
Halfway at number 5, Museum for American Atrocities. Located in southwest North Korea, the Shincheon Museum of American War Atrocities was reopened in 2014 to pay tribute to the DPRK citizens students who brutally passed away during the Xinjiang massacre, where up to 35,000 people were systematically massacred over a 3-month period. Except historians can't agree on what actually happened, what role Americans had in the killings as opposed to vengeful South Korean troops, and even if the massacre took place at all. It's likely that the US officer in North blamed for organizing the killings never existed, and many scholars have said the killings were actually committed by communists eliminating less ideological reliable communists. Whatever really happened at Xinjiang, the North clearly blames the US for it. As such, the museum contains dozens of gory exhibits showing Americans torturing, mutilating, and slaughtering innocent DPRK citizens, and the displays are unbelievably graphic and disturbing to many.
All the way at our number 4 spot, we have a war caused by a tree. Yes, a little simple tree led to one of the most devastating wars. The tree was blocking a checkpoint view, which is why the US decided to chop it off in the first place. As you would expect, when the US caught wind that their soldiers passed away in a foreign country, they quickly took action. They created Operation Paul Bunyan, which is named after a mythical lumberjack from North American lore. The operation was very simple: go back to the DMZ and chop it down. Except they came with a little few friends of their own. This included hundreds of soldiers armed with machine guns, grenade launchers, chainsaws, but that wasn't enough. To make this more American, they brought in a 23 vehicle convoy with a tank, 20 utility helicopters, 7 attack helicopters, just in case they thought a few soldiers wasn't enough.
Coming in at our number 3 spot, Camp 22. In the remote northeastern corner of North Korea, close to the border of Russia and China, is Hanyang. Hidden away in the mountains, this remote town is home to Camp 22, North Korea's largest concentration camp, where thousands of men, women, and children accused of political crimes are held. It is also claimed that it's where thousands pass away each year, and where prison guards stamp on the necks of babies born to prisoners to execute them. Over the past year, harrowing first-hand testimonies from North Korean defectors have detailed execution and torture, and evidence has emerged that the walls of Camp 22 hid an even more evil secret: gas chambers where horrific chemical experiments are conducted on people. Witnesses have described watching entire families be put in glass chambers and gassed.
At number 2 spot, we have the poop balloon. Whether it be scary or totally funny, a poop balloon attack was actually done in North Korea. Back in 2016, North Korea conducted their 4th underground nuclear test, and in response to this, South Korea sent a mass of balloons carrying different propaganda on them. They didn't think the North Koreans would play their game, but oh, they definitely did, and changed it up in the worst way possible. They sent an army of balloons filled with used toilet paper, cigarette butts, rotten food, and some propaganda as well. At first, South Korean officials believed that their balloons contained biochemical substances. I mean, if we want to refer to human feces as biochemical, then I'm all about it. Another reason why this small attack happened was because it came at a time when North Korea released information of their very own hydrogen bomb. Just for reference, this is what they look like compared to other atomic bombs.
Coming in at our number 1 spot, Yeonmi Park's story. This story was posted by Yeonmi Park, and it was about how she lived in North Korea and how she eventually managed to escape. She had said, quote, "Our schools and textbooks were full of images of grotesque American GIs with blue eyes and huge noses executing civilians. Sometimes at recess we lined up to beat or stab dummies dressed like American soldiers. Every subject in school came with a dose of propaganda. A math problem would go like this: if you kill one American bastard and your comrade kills 2, how many deceased Americans do you have? There were so many things we were forbidden to do, buy, or sell, and public executions were used to teach lessons in loyalty and the consequences of disobedience. When I was little, a young man was arrested for killing and eating a cow. Cows were the property of the state, and they were too valuable to eat because they were used for plowing fields and dragging carts. This man suffered from tuberculosis and had nothing to eat, but that didn't matter to the police. They took him behind the market and tied him to a piece of wood. 3 men with rifles began firing at him until his body flopped to the ground. My mother watched in shock. She couldn't believe that in her own country, a human's life had less value than an animal's."
At number 10 spot, we have CRISPR babies. Imagine you could customize yourself however you like, including your height, your skin color, your voice, and maybe testosterone for men. Well, this is what Chinese researcher Ho Zhenku did. In 2018, the Chinese researcher made the world's first gene-edited baby using CRISPR-Cas9. CRISPR was a new technology that allowed for DNA editing. Specifically, Ho was trying to encode HIV co-receptor with the goal of making a set of baby twins resistant to the virus. Except this form of gene editing is more scary than that. Scientists say that it can be used for virtually any other modification. At our number 9 spot, we have the social credit system. In 2014, China released a renowned social credit system, the one most of us have heard about, you know, on TikTok, YouTube, everywhere has talked about it. But many of us don't understand how it works. It basically is a system that works with AI, CCTV, surveillance footage, and listening devices that either rewards you or takes away points. In a way, these points decide how valuable you are as a person in the society. The fear of having a low social credit score is nationwide because you may be put up on a massive billboard for everyone to see and mock. Examples of how you can increase your social credit score include talk about good about the Chinese government on social media, donating to charity, helping people around your community, teaching Chinese, basically anything that's good or good for China. To lose points, you can drive over the speed limits, litter around, play your music a little bit too loud, or even spending money on something that they deem is dumb purchases. And punishments for having low scores could mean bans from public transit, slowed down Wi-Fi, or even banned from any luxurious restaurants or hotels. The fact that they implemented the Black Mirror episode into real life is scary enough, but the fact that the government is constantly stalking and judging you is even more terrifying. At a number 8 spot, we have super drones. To increase their military presence in the open waters, China has unveiled a mothership named the Zuhaiyun, which carries over 50 advanced unmanned drones. So basically, it's an unmanned boat carrying autonomous drones, so no human is on board, and yet the ship is capable of destruction on a different level. Each drone is very intelligent. Each one knows what the other one is doing, so if these drones decide to attack a human, then all of the other drones would attack too. Warfare without the use of human soldiers is horrible. These drones can move at the speeds no human can reach. They can hit and detect at ranges no human could ever possibly think about. And they're able to be made just like that. Just imagine if they decide to put their entire funding on these drones and made a complete army. Elon said this about the situation.
You can make a swarm of assassin drones for very little money by just taking the Face ID chip that's used in cell phones and having a small explosive charge and a standard drone, and have them just do a grid sweep of the building until they find the person they're looking for, ram into them and explode. You can do that right now. No new technology is needed. Right now.
At our number 7 spot, we have the artificial sun. Located at the Institute of Plasma Physics of the Chinese Academy of Sciences in Hefei, China, lies the sun. But Andrew, the sun is in outer space, not in China. Sorry, my bad. The artificial sun. Sounds pretty terrifying on the surface. Just imagine how hot the sun is and how much power is contained within that. Fortunately, their purpose was for something else well needed in the future, and that is energy. There is no question we're running out of fossil fuels, and all the other methods we have tried are just not sustainable over long periods of time. China then created the sun to unlock clean and limitless energy. Then in this year, they were able to reach a record high of 126 million degrees Fahrenheit at its core. And for those who don't know, that's 5 times hotter than the sun. They needed this core so hot because this intense pressure and the high temperature make atomic nuclei fuse together, which creates new elements or energy. Except in this case, this sun could make limitless energy. At number 6 spot, we have AI supremacy. China has been leading the world in the development of artificial intelligence for years now. China has also made significant headway in developing practical applications of AI. In particular, the country is making major strides in self-driving cars, facial recognition, and voice recognition, especially used with their social credit system I mentioned above. But should we be worried? Yes and no. AI is good for its various uses, but in the hands of the wrong people, AI could mean the end of our civilization. And in more scary news, according to The Telegraph, the Institute of Artificial Intelligence at Hefei Comprehensive National Science Center created an AI program that could allegedly analyze brain waves and facial expressions to gauge whether a person is loyal to the Chinese Communist Party, basically claiming that it could read our minds. Right in the hump of our list, we have supersonic missiles. China has the second largest budget on their military, so best know they're chasing USA in the arms race, especially in the missile arms race with the recent developments of a hypersonic missile. For those who don't know, hypersonic missiles are these missiles that can travel between 5 to 25 times the speed of sound, which makes them increasingly hard to hit, along with the fact that they can operate in a different region of the atmosphere. To put it in perspective, slower subsonic missiles travel a bit lower, and intercontinental ballistic missiles are a bit higher, which makes these guys right in the middle region where many countries don't have the capability to detect. This summer, China has had claimed that they sent hypersonic missiles out and it went around the world. The scary thing is that Russia has claimed their hypersonic missiles are able to carry nukes around the world, and China is only growing their nuclear arsenal as we speak, with many estimating that they would have about 1,000 warheads by the end of the decade. At number 4 spot, we have facial recognition. I elaborate about this on the past points, but I want to show you guys just how scary facial recognition software is. At any given time, China's CCTV surveillance cameras can detect a person, who they are, what family they came from, what crimes they committed, what they do for work, and obviously their social credit score. China's facial recognition system logs literally every single Chinese citizen, and they have a population of 1.4 billion people, meaning that database is probably massive. China has also been accused of using this to commit the atrocities done against the Muslims in the country. They did this by using the same AI to locate Muslims within the crowds and later approach them for questioning. Being watched by the government on all your action definitely affects the behavior of a human. So in a way, this technology is controlling the population to act a certain way deemed appropriate by the Chinese government. Guess wearing hyper-realistic mask is the new thing to do in China. All the way at a number 3 spot, we have an EMP. We mentioned hypersonic missiles in my last points, but they also have the capability to carry EMPs. EMPs, or electromagnetic pulse, is an intense electric burst that damages electronics over a given area. It acts like a giant magnet, breaking everything electronic along its path. This would mean a complete shutdown of power grids, and it can even corrupt the data inside of hard drives, which is detrimental if used on government buildings and areas. Basically, this could cause cities to be in complete darkness. Although it doesn't do anything to humans directly, the issue is much bigger than that. Have you ever spent a day without internet or power? How many issues did you have initially? Now imagine that at a larger scale where your government is in complete darkness as well. Sounds like a huge threat. At number 2 spot, we have biological warfare. Many have claimed that the coronavirus originating from Wuhan, China was actually a biological weapon they released to cause global panic. Allegedly, Chinese military scientists were already looking in 2015 how to create a weaponized biological weapon based on documents obtained by the US State Department. Although China declined any sort of allegations towards releasing COVID on purpose, it's widely known that China is notorious for lying and hiding everything not from just the world but their own citizens. After seeing how the world reacted to the pandemic, biological warfare seems like the best way to control citizens and cause international panic. So whatever China did, it worked. At number 1 spot, we have stronger military planes. As I mentioned earlier, China is advancing their military very quickly after pouring in more and more money every single year. One of their military advancements include the J-20 fighter jet, and it was made with a purpose to combat the American fighter plane, the F-22 Raptor. Notorious for its stealth, speed, and agility, the J-20 is capable of reaching speeds up to 2,000 kilometers per hour, but they are not known for the speed. Instead, the Chinese government emphasized the stealth component, making it an effective long-range interceptor. They have currently built an arsenal of around 200 of them, which are all functional and ready for a battle. General Wilsbash discussed and praised another one of Chinese planes named the KJ-500, mentioning their features of long-range air-to-air missiles and how that greatly changes the playing field in the air. At number 10 spot, we have Loang Siwu. Loang Siwu, or its Javanese translation, means 1,000 doors. And guess what? These guys are liars because this building doesn't have that many doors, but what they aren't lying about is the dark history associated with this place. After being completed in 1919, this building was the head office for the Dutch East Indies Railway Company. Then it transitioned into a Japanese military headquarters for World War II. So best believe this building saw countless deaths and other tragedies. Many of the supernatural activity within is attributed to what happened during World War II. It's believed that the Japanese would torture and hang people from the iron beams underneath the ceiling. And it's said by many guests who stand underneath the beams that they get touched or hear the screams of those who were tortured. At number 9 spot, we have Bintaro Railway and Magari Station. Known as one of the most devastating accidents in railway history, the 1987 Bintaro train crash had 2 trains colliding head-on due to a mere miscommunication. From the accident, more than 100 lives were claimed and many more injured. It was so bad of a crash, it took first responders over 2 days to dig out all the bodies and people trapped under the debris. Now the train graveyard located in Magari Station, where all the train metal was buried, is supposedly haunted. At the dead of night, locals claim to see the ghostly apparitions of 2 trains going towards one another, all while hearing the panic screams of those trapped inside. It is said that many pedestrians have been struck and killed after crossing these tracks, and the survivors of these incidents claim they were possessed by the people of the train crash. At a number 8 spot, we have Mall Klender. Back on May 15, 1998, an army of looters residing in East Jakarta had taken over the Yogyakarta department store in response to the sudden collapse of the Indonesian economy. During the time, over 400 shopkeepers and visitors were stuck inside of the building in fear of being attacked if they tried to leave. But as hours went by, the looters eventually burned down the 4-story building with all the people still inside of it. This caused over 250 lives to perish within minutes, making one of the most devastating terrorist attacks in history. However, in the year 2000, they decided to rebuild the burnt down building into a shopping store called Klender Mall. except many believe this mall to be haunted the moment of its construction, especially since the area claimed as many lives as it did. Workers at the mall report that they still find the charred remains of some who were burnt alive with fingers and other small body parts scattered around the mall. As well, the majority of workers claimed to be in a trance-like state at least once when working, which they all blamed it on the tortured ghost trapped in the building. At number 7 spot, we have the Ghost Palace Hotel. As the name suggests, well, you already know what the name suggests. Ghost. Ooh. So as you can see, this hotel lies abandoned and looks creepy as is. The variations of the story goes from a developer being cursed due to his corrupt practices, or that one night all workers and guests suddenly disappeared out of thin air. The most believable story is that of Tommy Soeharto, who was a son of a former Indonesian president. He went on to construct this hotel back in the early 1990s until he was sent to prison in 2002, which caused all construction to completely cease. Now, after countless years of being completely abandoned, many believe this place is as scary as it looks. Located in the mountains of Bedugul, the Ghost Palace is heavily guarded, but it's said that you can enter if you pay 10,000 rupees for a ticket. Now, if you enter this abandoned place, people report feeling a strong sense of loneliness even when they're with a group. As well, others report seeing the ghosts of people working, which are said to be those who passed away during the construction of this building. I mean, seeing one person in an abandoned place is enough for me to be walking straight back home. At number 6 spot, we have the Octopus House. Located on Pastor Road lies this unusual house that can be described only as having a large octopus on the roof, hence the name Octopus House. Although much is unknown about this now abandoned house, it is said that it was built back in the 1990s, with sources claiming the octopus started off as a bright pink opposed to the fading black color it has today. Other than the creepiness just given from looking at the house, it is said that the house is used by the Church of Satan. Many stories would have guests coming in the house completely normal, but as they leave, they would leave sick with bruises and scratches to accompany that. In the Humber list were the Menara Seda. The Menara Seda, or the Seda Tower, is a 28-story abandoned building in Cawang, East Jakarta. The building is most popular for its Roman architecture inspiration, with Roman pillars and statues being imported directly from Italy. It was completed in 1998, but after ownership and financial issues, it became abandoned in 2007. But that was far from the end of this building's story. Now the decaying building has quite a few ghosts stuck inside. For example, when the building shut down, people began to notice that the rooms of the building were lighting up, despite the fact that the local power company cut out all power to the building. The reports were in the hundreds, with some even claiming that they saw a person standing in one of these lit up rooms. The basement of this building is supposedly the most haunted, with no security guard willing to walk this area, even when it was open. Reports say that many encounter an unseen figure, which in some cases will attack unsuspecting victims, tugging their hair and their clothes. At number 4 spot, we have the Tugu Complex. In the city of Malang are 3 schools who are in deep connection with the horrors committed in World War II. Back in the 1940s, these 3 schools were used as concentration camps by the opposing Japanese soldiers. The Japanese created an underground system of crawl spaces and secret rooms that connected each school with one another, along with the local train station and governor's office. This would ensure accessibility everywhere on the area. And another strange occurrence in this building is the bloodstains on the floor tiles in each building. And the odd thing about that is that workers say that removing these stains are nearly impossible. At a number 3 spot, we have the Ancol Bridge. Although it is known as a waterside creation area, Ancol is said to contain one of Jakarta's most tragic and dangerous spirits. The ghost that haunts Ancol's Goyong Bridge is said to be that of a beautiful young woman named Siti Arya, who was kidnapped and murdered in the early 1800s after she rejected the advances of a powerful old man. Legend says that her body was left in the rice field right by where the Goyong Bridge stands now. Now referred to as the sweetheart of Ancol Bridge, Siti's ghost, which is also sometimes called Mariam, is said to appear on the bridge at night wearing a white dress or sometimes a black kabaya. The urban legend about her also says that she caused several drivers going past the bridge to get into fatal accidents. The story of Ancol Bridge is so famous that it became made into several movies as well as a TV show. At number 2 spot, we have the Casablanca Tunnel. This is considered to be Indonesia's most haunted tunnel, and it is located in Busuki Ramhat Street near the Kuningan area, and although there is nothing documented about this bridge, it is believed to be built sometime in the 1980s. The tunnel's location used to be a graveyard, so during construction they planned to relocate it, but did so improperly. It's said that this caused many of the spirits to come out of their eternal rest. Although other tunnels have had their own fair share of accidents, the ones that happen in the Casablanca tunnel are quite different. Drivers who were caught in accidents all claim seeing a woman walking across the street, causing them to crash in the first place. The woman is known as a red robe lady, and as the name suggests, she would be seen walking the tunnel in her red robe. It is said that this is the ghost of a woman whose grave was disturbed and has been there ever since. At a number 1 spot, we are the Jeruk Perut Cemetery. Of course, cemeteries make excellent haunted locations, but Jeruk Perut Cemetery next to Kemang is possibly the most well-known haunted graveyard in Jakarta. It is said to be haunted by the spirit of a decapitated pastor who walks around holding his head in his hands and is frequently followed by a giant black dog. He allegedly went hunting for his own grave, which in reality is in another cemetery. The priest is not the only ghost in Jeruk Perut, although he is the most well known. It's stated that if you're with an odd number group of individuals on Friday nights, you have the best chance of running into him. Apparently, nighttime and visitors to the cemetery are quite common, and there are even reports that the groundskeeper will take you on tour for a small fee. Coming in at a number 10 spot, we have the elevator game. The elevator game is a mysterious and potentially dangerous ritual that is said to bring you to another world. This game has its origins in Japan and is played by entering an elevator in a public building with at least 10 floors. The player must press specific buttons in a specific order without anyone entering or even leaving the elevator in order to reach this other world. In the other world, electronics do not work, the lights are off, and all that can be seen from the windows is a red cross in the distance. To return back to the original world, the players must repeat the sequence of button presses and be very vigilant of their surroundings. The player must be careful not to look at the woman who enters the elevator on the 5th floor, as she is not human. If someone enters or even leaves the elevator during the ritual, the players must start over. And you must be wondering what the specific ritual is, but if you guys actually want to know about that, search it up, because I'm not going to say it for you guys because I don't want you guys doing this. Because for those who have played, it is said that if they faint or lose consciousness during the ritual, they may wake up in their own home. But they must be careful to examine their surroundings, as it may not be the same home they left. It is important to not attempt this ritual too many times as well, as it can lead to an accidental slipping between both worlds. And it's also worth mentioning that if the woman does not enter the elevator or the players do not reach the 10th floor, they should immediately return to the 1st floor and completely end the game. At a number 9 spot, we have the Rokurokubi, the long-necked demon. The legend of the Rokurokubi is a supernatural creature from Japanese mythology that originated during the Edo period, which is 1603 to 1867. The Rokurokubi is a beautiful woman by day, but at night she undergoes a metamorphosis where her neck extends and she begins to hunt. Some versions of this legend says that this creature can be recognized by small white marks on their neck, or even by the way they sleep with their head far from their body. But in reality, when I see photos of this, all I can think is, if they got a long neck, they're probably this creature. According to folklore, however, there are different explanations for the origin of this creature. Some believe they were once Buddhists who broke the religion's principles and were then cursed as punishment, while other people see the transformation as a supernatural expression of the person's desires. There are also legends that suggest they are Oni, which are these Japanese demons seeking revenge or even simply just playing tricks on humans. And it's also worth mentioning that this creature comes in many different forms, with female ones attacking men and male ones attacking women. The Nukekubi is one of the most dangerous forms, however, known for its detached head that just flies around and attacks its prey. At a number 8 spot, we have Hitobashira. Hitobashira, also known as human pillars, is a custom of human sacrifice that was once practiced in Japan. It involved burying a victim alive under or near large-scale buildings such as dams, bridges, and castles. The practice was believed to appease the gods and protect the structure from natural disasters and enemy attacks. The tradition of human sacrifice in Japan dates back to the construction of aristocratic tombs in ancient times. The use of human pillars persisted in various parts of Japan until the 16th century. Legend has it that the Maruoka Castle, one of the oldest surviving castles in Japan, was built with the help of a human pillar named Oshizu. When the stone wall of the castle kept collapsing, a vassal suggested the use of a human sacrifice, Oshizu, who is this one-eyed woman living in poverty who volunteered to even become this human pillar in the first place. But she did this under one condition, and that one condition being that one of her sons was turned into a samurai. She was buried under the central pillar of the castle keep, and the construction was successfully completed. However, her son was not made a samurai, and thus her spirit has caused moat to overflow with spring rain every single year, and some people even report to see her ghost when they enter and visit this castle. As a result, people erected a small tomb to soothe her spirit, and a poem was even handed down about the rain caused by the tears of Ushizu's sorrow. It is speculated that the instability of the walls of the Maraoka Castle was due to the design of the castle in the first place, which is more indicative of earlier fortresses. On the other hand, the Matsu Castle is also rumored to have been constructed on human sacrifice, buried under the castle stone walls. The victim was a beautiful young maiden who was fond of dancing and is referred to as the Maiden of the Matsu. After the castle was built, a law was passed forbidding any girl to dance in the streets of Matsu because the hill Oshiruyama would shudder and the castle would shake from top to bottom. Although this practice has not been continued, it's just crazy to think that this was actually done, and some of the pillars in Japan actually contain real human sacrifice. At our number 7 spot, we have the Kisaragi Station. In 2004, a 2chan user named Hasumi posted on a thread asking for help because she got on the wrong train at Shin Hamatsu Station. This was rather strange because she usually caught the same train after work, and trains in the station only go in one direction. She started getting really anxious because she remembered the stops only being a few minutes between each station, but on this specific train ride, they were just much longer. They even went through a tunnel, but her usual line didn't go through any sort of tunnel. She walked to the front car to ask the conductor for help, but the curtain was closed and no one answered. She then knocked on the door, but that's when the train suddenly stopped at Kisaragi Station. As she left the train, she was filled with huge anxiety and fear, but as she tried to go back, the train door shut on her. As all this was happening, she was messaging people on this discussion board on 4chan about the station, but when they all replied, they had said that no such station existed in Japan. She decided to exit the station and walk back along the tracks, even back through the tunnel she had gone through under earlier. She reported strange sounds like drums in the distance, and even a voice telling her that walking on the tracks is extremely dangerous. As she grew more afraid, she turned back to go around, but she saw an old man with one leg, which then slowly disappeared right after. When she finally got out of the tunnel, a man came up offering help and to drive her to the nearest station. This is when she posted on the thread for the very last time, saying that the man was muttering to himself, then her phone died, and she was never heard from the thread again. At our number 6 spot, we have the 1932 Shirokiya department store. On December 16, 1932, tragedy struck the Shirokiya department store in Japan during their year-end Christmas theme sale. The festive decorations of the season turned into a nightmare as a fire broke out at the toy section just a few minutes before the store was about to open. The fire quickly spread to floors 4 and 8, filling the staircase with smoke and cutting off major escape routes. This left many shoppers and employees stranded on the upper floors, desperate for a way to find safety. Some of those who were trapped made makeshift ropes from clothing or curtains and climbed down to safety. Others were not so lucky. They instead fell to their deaths or even suffocated in the smoke-filled building. In total, 14 people lost their lives and 67 were injured in the Shirokiya department store fire. In the aftermath of the fire, stories and legends began to circulate about the tragedy. One particularly interesting legend relates to the traditional dress of the saleswomen in the store. At the time, it was customary for women who wore traditional kimonos to go without panties. According to this urban legend, some of the saleswomen in kimonos who were trapped on the upper floors chose not to jump the safety nets that had been set up below because they were just ashamed to not be seen below without underwear. While there is no real proof that this legend actually existed, it is said to have led on to an increase in the popularity of Western style panties in Japan, which is both odd and kind of terrifying at the same time. I don't know what to think. In the hub for our list, we have the ghost taxi passengers. After the devastating 3/11 earthquake and tsunami that hit the northeastern Japan coast, sightings of yurei or ghosts have increased drastically in cities like Ishinomaki in Miyagi Prefecture. As these spirits have not been properly put to rest, some may have not even been aware that they are dead and are often searching for a way home. As a result, taxi drivers all over this place have long been subject to ghostly encounters in the form of passengers trying to go home or to a very specific place. This has almost become a norm for taxi drivers around Japan to be asked if they had ever had a ghostly passenger before. Tohoku Gaon University conducted a study called the Awakened Spiritual Earthquake Studies that involved interviews with more than 100 Ishinomaki taxi drivers who had supernatural encounters. Many drivers reported picking up passengers who seemed to be wet or wearing winter coats in the summer, months after the disaster in the cold months of March. Most drivers reported running the meter and having to pay the fee for the vanished passenger. One particular driver reported a chilling story about a man in winter clothing who whom he picked up in the summer, who asked to be taken to an address that had been destroyed. The driver asked if he was sure that that was the address, as it was just a vacant lot, to which the passenger replied by asking, "Am I dead?" Number 4, the Red Room Curse. The Red Room Curse is a Japanese urban legend that originated from an interactive Adobe Flash horror animation uploaded to GeoCities in the late 1990s. The legend tells the story of a pop-up ad that appears on the victim's computer screen, displaying a black text that reads, "Do you like?" on a red background. After trying to close the pop-up, it reappears with a new message that reads, "Do you like the Red Room?" before the screen just turns completely red, displaying a list of names of the Red Room victims. This is when the victim senses a mysterious presence behind them before losing consciousness and later being found dead in a room with blood-painted walls. The legend gained notoriety in 2004 when a 12-year-old schoolgirl was murdered by an 11-year-old classmate known as Girl A in Sasebo. It was reported that Girl A was a fan of the Red Room Curse animation and had the video bookmarked on her computer at the time of her death. And of course, this incident led to widespread discussion and fear for this curse. Then in 2016, a short film titled The Red Room Curse was released and was inspired by this urban legend, of course. The film brings the legend to life and is sure to give anyone who watches it a chilling experience. So if you guys kind of want to know what this Red Room is about, watch this film because it'll give you all the insights. Number 3, the Ushi Oni. The world of Japanese mythology is full of terrifying creatures, but none are quite as fearsome as the Ushi Oni, also known as the Ox Demon. This class of monster is found near bodies of water and is known for its savage and cruel nature. Although there are different types of Ushi Oni, they all share similar traits that make them unmistakable. Perhaps the most terrifying thing about these monsters is their insatiable appetite for human flesh. Then on top of that, they breathe toxic poison, making them even more deadly. The Ushi Oni is not to be trifled with as well, and many people who have encountered one have not lived to tell the tale. It is worth mentioning that the Ushi Oni is not always a solitary creature either. They are known to work together with other yokai or supernatural creatures such as the Nura Onna and the Iso Onna. These yokai use their charms to lure unsuspecting men towards the water, where the Ushi Oni is waiting to pounce and make a meal of its victims. The appearance of the Ushi Oni is quite unique and interesting as well. Much of them resemble an ox from the head up, but their body is a demonic horror. However, there are many variations on this theme, including one with a spider-like body, another one with a cat-like body, and even one with the body of a kimono-clad human. Pretty terrifying. Number 2, the cursed Kleenex commercial. In 1986, Kleenex released a commercial in Japan that sparked a series of disturbing urban legends. The ad featured a woman in white and an ogre-looking child sitting on a pile of hay and enjoying Kleenex tissues, all while singing the song "It's a Fine Day" by Jane and Barden played in the background. Almost instantly after the commercial was aired, TV stations and Kleenex corporate allegedly began receiving complaints about the ad, with many people finding it unsettling. Some claim that the entire film crew met untimely deaths in freak accidents following this, while others said that the child in the commercial had passed away immediately after filming this. There are also rumors that the actress Kaiko Matsuzaka had either passed away or even been committed to a psychiatric hospital. Others claim that when the ad came on at night, the singer's voice in the commercial transformed from that of a young soprano to a raspy old woman's. And the ad was so unsettling to the public that Kleenex eventually pulled it off air and replaced it with a completely different one. At our number 1 spot, we have the Kaikoji Temple. This place has nothing really scary about it, except the fact that it has mummified bodies on display. Okay, maybe it's a bit scary. These mummified figures are known as the Shokuonbutsu, also known as the living Buddha or Buddha mummies. These are in fact real people, and these are the bodies of the priests who belong to the Shingon sect of Japanese Buddhism. All of these mummies we see are priests who made the drastic decision in self-mummification. And I don't know what it is, but there's something about a body that being fully intact for hundreds of years that makes it so creepy. The process for the mummification would actually be very intense as well, and for the first 1,000 days, and it would go a little something like this. For the first 1,000 days, they would do extreme fasting and exercising. Then on the next 1,000 days, they would reduce their diet to a bare minimum in order to fit in this thing. The last 1,000 days would consist of entombment. Basically, many would bury themselves alive essentially while in a deep state of meditation in order to reach enlightenment. At number 10 spot, we have the Krasu. Can't lie, when I first looked at this creature, I didn't know what to think. The Krasu is found and talked about all over Southeast Asia, including Thailand. It appears as a beautiful young woman, except it's missing a significant amount of body parts. The Krasu is only made up of a head with her internal organs hanging down from her neck. So as you would imagine, probably the most terrifying thing to see in real life. In Thailand legend, it said a Khmer princess became a Krasu after she was executed by burning, all because she tried to marry a person of lower status. So before the execution, the princess hired a sorceress to cast a spell on her, except the fire had already burned her entire body except for her head, which is why the Krasu appears the way it does. The spell was so powerful, however, it gave her new life, except only in this terrifying form. Now the Krasu flies around with a never-ending thirst for blood to drink and raw flesh to devour. So for the first time ever, avoid this beautiful woman. At number 9 spot, we have Tawi Watana Deserted House. This is a supposed cursed house where everyone who entered the house would be met with a terrible fate. In the Tawi Watana district of Bangkok, rumor has it that in 2015, a group of early teenagers entered the home. They were just out partying, so they entered the home high on alcohol and other narcotics. The reason they entered the house was because locals had already claimed that the house was haunted, so the boys decided to go check on it for themselves. This ended up being a very terrible decision later on. It said that whoever entered the house will have one of the home's spirits attached to them forever. It wasn't until 3 months after when 2 of the boys were fatally wounded in a motorcycle accident. Then a year later, a 3rd boy was caught also in a fatal accident. Then in the next year, 2 more of the boys lost their lives in a house fire. The odd thing about all these deaths was that the witnesses claimed that they saw a woman in white sitting on the backs of the motorcycles before their fatal accidents and before the house fire. Witnesses also claimed to see a woman in white entering the house before it burned down. Number 8 spot, we have the Jar Shuam Ashram. At the Ashram Shuan inside Thailand, there are literally hundreds of these statues scattered all around the property. These elaborate statues were created by one single shaman. This was no regular shaman, however. This shaman specialized in the dark arts and sorcery. So when he was alive, he performed rituals in which human remains such as ash, bone, hair, and skin would be mixed in with the concrete and be used to make these statues. After the shaman passed away, the ashram was left abandoned and the statues were left to be consumed by the forest around it. Locals avoid going to this ashram after dark because this is when the most activity happens with these statues. Some claim to hear the statues talk to one another while others see them fully move around. Regardless, seeing these statues that are just mixed in with human remains would be a terrifying thought, not only to see but just to think about. At number 7, we have the Courtesan Graveyard. In the western region of Thailand lies this infamous graveyard. The name I mentioned is not the actual name of the place, but after I mention some points, you'll understand why I changed it. Throughout the years, there's been numerous stories that this building was used as a brothel. Tragically, the women who were hired here were basically forced into adult work, and on top of that, they lived in these tiny rooms and were forced to take part with dozens of men. This is just a horrible thought beyond imagination. If the women said no or disobeyed, they were assaulted and left malnourished. So this is why this place got its name, because inside are the countless bodies of women and babies who were tragically left to die. Nowadays, it remains deserted for good reason, but if you go near the area at night, many report hearing constant screams and cries for help that grow louder and louder. At number 6 spot, we have the disappearance of Jim Thompson. Jim Thompson was an American businessman who came to Thailand and helped revitalize the Thai silk industry in the 1950s and 60s. So you can say he had a lot of power and influence in the area. He eventually built a house in Thailand filled with artifacts and various other Thailand charms. He was also loved by many locals and flourished in the Thai industry until one day in 1967, he was away in Cameron Highlands in Malaysia. Then, following an Eastern church service, Jim Thompson suddenly disappeared out of nowhere. This caused a 500-man grand-scale search for Jim, including the Thai army and Malaysian police force. After months of searching and the worldwide attention, Jim was declared dead in 1974 despite there being no trace or forensic evidence of him whatsoever. So did Jim just vanish out of thin air, or were there some greedy businessman looking to eradicate their competition? We'll never know. Right in the hunt for a list, we have Wat Sahat. The Wat Sahat is a Buddhist temple located in Bangkok, Thailand. This temple was built all the way back in 1807 under King Rama I, so best believe it went through countless decades and countless leaders. At the time it was built, many people were told stories about the undead. Specifically in the temple, the undead were said to appear in the front of the temple's doors, resembling a thin-bodied ghost with a scary howling cry. This ghost is known as the Preta, and it was used in many religions to show someone suffering greater than humans at an extreme level of hunger and thirst. So I don't know if this ghost serves as a reminder for us to be grateful for our nourishment, or is it just another one of those ghosts that haunted this place? Who knows? At number 4 spot, we have the Bioki Sky Hotel. Located in what was once the tallest building in Bangkok, the Bioki Sky Hotel is one of the highest hotels in in Southeast Asia. It towers over much of the city at 88 stories tall. However, in 2012, there was a tragic accident during construction of the tower whereby 3 workers plummeted to their deaths. Perhaps enraged by the unsafe equipment and working practices, the souls are now said to haunt the high-class hotel. Guests and staff members alike have reported a variety of strange happenings, including things mysteriously moving and creepy shadows. Even websites like TripAdvisor and Google Reviews also talk about many of the supernatural encounters they had in the hotel. These reviews suggest that guests report poltergeist activity, which include having their items moved around the rooms, shadowy figures in the dark corners of the rooms, and having the feeling of being watched and not alone. I know it doesn't make sense financially, but I feel like they should just close down a hotel after there's been more than a few deaths occurring, because I swear every hotel is haunted nowadays. At number 3 spot, we're the Bang Poo Shoe Hotel. There is a certain shoe factory that nobody dares to walk in to this day. In Samut Prakan lies this now abandoned shoe factory. Why is it abandoned? Well, because back in the day, the factory suffered a freak accident that led many people to their deaths and injuries of many more workers. Instead of shutting down the factory, the greedy owner decided to keep it operational very soon after. Eventually, employees began to leave after reporting that they have encountered the angered spirits of their fellow workers. After many complaints were made about the factory, and when the workers started to desert the place completely, the owner decided to take his own life inside of the factory. To this day, the ghost stories that surround Bang Poo Shoe Factory, as I mentioned, have caused no one to step foot inside. Some locals say they occasionally get the whiff of newly burnt embers, shadowed with the screams of workers still trying to find their way out. At number 2 spot, we have Phi Phlong. Be cautious of who you see during the day, as they may morph into a ghost at night. Phi Phlong, a foul-smelling spirit, appears as a normal person during the day and as a ghost at night. The odd things it feasts on, such as frogs, give Phi Phlong its pungent odor. This creature is so feared that if locals even hear a frog close by, they will purposely rush inside of their homes in fear of bumping into the Phi Phlong. This stinky ghost is harmless until threatened, which means you can end up like a Phi Phlong if he attacks and you ingest his saliva. I mean, just by looking at this creature, there's nothing good about them, but I guess they don't randomly attack, which is kind of a good thing. Kind of. So for another weird thing these guys do is that they will throw banana stalk cut from the widow water shoulder poles over the roof of the victim's house. This will cause the family of the house to suffer bad luck and other tragedies in the following years. All the way at a number 1 spot with the Khao Lak. Khao Lak is a beautiful seaside town in Phang Nga province. In 2004, it was all but destroyed by a devastating tsunami. While many places in several countries suffered casualties and damage after the huge earthquake in the Indian Ocean, Khao Lak saw Thailand's greatest loss of life. It is estimated that at least 4,000 people perished on December 26, 2004. The resort has risen from the debris, with homes, hotels, and businesses gradually being rebuilt and repaired. Many Thai people believe that the coastal area is haunted by the tsunami's victims, and ghosts have reported strange occurrences in many of the local hotels.